What if one day you came across the past you've tried to forget, and it had your face on it? Daniel spent 10 years building a perfect life. Money, success, respect, everything he ever wanted. But on a simple walk in the park, a devastating truth hit him like a punch. The boy running carefree there, laughing next to a woman he knew well, had his eyes. Daniel's world stopped. He had never known. He had never imagined it. And now, there he was, the son he had abandoned without even knowing he existed. But what if it's too late? A story about guilt, regret, and the search for redemption. Can some doors be reopened? Or are certain choices irreversible? The park was quiet that afternoon. The wind rustled the leaves on the trees, and the sound of children playing was mixed with the murmur of conversations around them. Daniel walked slowly along the stone path, trying to shake off the tension he had been carrying since the morning. After endless meetings, all he wanted was a moment of silence. He adjusted the sleeve of his jacket and pulled his cell phone out of his pocket. "Yes, I'm on my way to the hotel," he said, answering a call from a work colleague. "I need to review the contracts before tomorrow's meeting." The answer on the other end was a distant whisper. Daniel wasn't really listening. Something caught his attention, and his body froze. A few meters away, a woman was laughing as she watched a child play with a ball. The laughter was unmistakable. Anna. Daniel's throat went dry. He pressed the phone to his ear, but could no longer pay attention to the conversation. His gaze was fixed on the scene in front of him. Anna was there, and next to her, a boy who couldn't have been more than 10 years old. The boy ran after the ball, and Daniel felt a chill run down his spine. His hair, the way he moved, even the way he frowned as he concentrated. It was like looking at his own reflection from years ago. "Daniel, are you still on the line?" He blinked, realizing he was still holding the phone. "I have to hang up," he said quickly, ending the call without waiting for an answer. He felt his heart racing. Time seemed to slow down as he watched the scene. With every second, the idea grew stronger. It couldn't be a coincidence. Anna threw back her hair and looked around. When her eyes met his, the smile instantly disappeared. For a moment, neither of them moved. Daniel saw the change in her expression. First surprise, then a flicker of something that looked like anger. Anna lowered her gaze to the boy, who was now nonchalantly kicking the ball, and then back to Daniel. He felt a lump in his throat. 10 years. 10 years since he left without looking back. And now, the past was right there in front of him, impossible to ignore. Anna took a deep breath and looked away. Daniel felt his hands sweat. His mind was screaming at him to leave, but his feet were stuck to the ground. He wanted to get closer. He needed to ask, but what if he was right? What if that boy was his son? What if it was too late? Silence filled the small apartment. Only the ticking of the clock filled the space, each sound marking the passage of time like a cruel reminder of what was about to happen. Daniel was sitting at the kitchen table, staring at a folded sheet of paper in front of him. His hands rested on the cold wood, fingers intertwined, as if there was still time to reconsider. But there wasn't. In the next room, Anna slept, oblivious to the whirlwind of thoughts that consumed him. His heart was heavy. He knew that as soon as he walked out of that door, there would be no turning back. He took a deep breath and opened the letter once more. "Anna, I can't go on living like this. I need more. I know this will hurt you, but I can't ignore how I feel. Don't look for me. Daniel." Cold, quick, painless. That's what he told himself. But it wasn't true. "This isn't right," he muttered to himself, running his hands over his face. He looked towards the bedroom. He could just wake her up, talk to her, try to explain, but what would he say? "I love you, but not enough to stay." Anna would never understand. He picked up his suitcase and stood up slowly. The wooden floor creaked under his weight, and he held his breath, fearing that Anna would wake up, but the apartment remained silent. Before leaving, He took one last look at the cramped living room, the walls full of photos of the two of them, the sofa where they had spent so many evenings watching movies. A life that could have been enough for anyone, but not for him. The door closed with a soft click. The first few months were a whirlwind. Daniel plunged into work, closed deals, climbed the career ladder. Sleepless nights in Anna's small apartment gave way to luxurious hotels and meetings in imposing offices. He told himself that he had made the right choice. Then the phone call came. "Daniel?" The voice on the other end was familiar. For a second, his heart raced. "Anna?" Silence weighed on the line. When she spoke again, her voice was different. "I just wanted you to know I'm pregnant." The world stopped. "What?" "I found out a few weeks ago." Daniel opened his mouth, but no words came out. His chest tightened in a way he couldn't explain. "Are you sure?" "What do you think?" Her tone was sharp, wounded. Daniel ran a hand through his hair, trying to process. "Anna, You don't have to say anything," he interrupted. "I didn't call to ask for anything. I just thought you should know." The silence came again. "Anna, If you wanted to be here, you would have stayed. Good luck with your life, Daniel." The call dropped. He stared at the phone, still trying to absorb what had just happened. And for the first time, he wondered if he had made the biggest mistake of his life. But he moved on. At least, that's what he tried to believe. Years passed. Daniel built an empire, accumulated wealth, gained respect. He became exactly who he wanted to be. But for some reason, in the lonely early hours of the morning, when the glow of the cities he visited was reflected in the windows of his hotels, the phone that never rang with Anna's name bothered him. He tried to push the feeling away. He convinced himself that he had done what he needed to do, until that afternoon in the park, until he saw Anna, until he saw that boy. The resemblance was striking, and the look in her eyes, it wasn't just surprise. It was the silent confirmation of what he feared most. Daniel ran his tongue over his dry lips, trying to think. His hands were shaking. Time seemed to have turned completely around, bringing him back to where it all began. The only difference was that now he knew what he had left behind, and he couldn't just ignore it. Daniel couldn't sleep that night. He tossed and turned in bed, the image of the boy never leaving his mind. The similarities were undeniable, but he needed certainty. He ran his hands over his face, feeling the weight of doubt crushing him. The next morning, he picked up the phone and searched for a number he hadn't dialed in years. When he finally found it, he hesitated for a moment before pressing the call button. "Lucas?" The voice on the other end came slurred with sleep. "Daniel, is this serious? 10 years without calling me, and now you wake me up early?" "I need a favor," he said, ignoring the provocation. Lucas sighed. "I should have known." "What?" Daniel squeezed his eyes shut. How to explain, how to say in a few words that his life had been turned upside down in a matter of seconds. "I want you to investigate someone for me." The silence on the other end lasted longer than expected. "That's not my area anymore," Lucas said suspiciously. "I know, but it's important." "For whom?" "For you." Daniel rubbed the back of his neck. "For me and maybe for a boy." There was a pause. "A boy?" "Yes, he's 10, Lucas. 10. His friend let out a low whistle. "And let me guess, he has your smile," Daniel snorted. "I need to know the truth. And what are you going to do if it's true?" Daniel opened his mouth, but couldn't answer. "Just find out for me, Lucas." His friend sighed again. "That's fine. Send me everything you've got." Daniel took a deep breath, feeling a mixture of relief and anxiety. The next few days were unbearable. Every time he picked up his cell phone, he expected to see a message from Lucas with answers, but nothing came. On the third night, while staring into an untouched glass of whiskey, the phone rang. "Lucas, I got what you wanted." Daniel straightened up in his chair. Go ahead. Lucas let out a long sigh before saying, "His name is David, 10 years old, same date of birth as you imagined." Daniel's heart raced. "Anna, she raised the boy alone, without registering the father's name." Daniel swallowed. So that's it, Daniel. Everything points to him being your son." The silence hung in the air, heavy, definitive. "What now?" Lucas asked. Daniel closed his eyes. He didn't know, but he had to find out. Daniel felt the weight of Lucas's words hanging over him like an inescapable sentence. He had a son. 10 years. 10 years of growing up without knowing he existed. "Are you still there?" Lucas asked. Daniel ran his hand over his face. "Yes, he is." "So what are you going to do?" He had no answer. For years, he had been convinced that his choice had been the best for everyone. Now it all seemed like a big lie. "I don't know." Lucas laughed humorlessly. "You've always been good at running away, but you can't get away with this, Daniel." "I'm not running away." "Then prove it." Daniel didn't answer. The line went silent for a few seconds before Lucas sighed. "Look, I've found out where Anna lives now. I'm not saying you should show up there, but if you want to, send me the address." There was a pause before Lucas said, "Are you sure?" Daniel hesitated. No, he wasn't sure, but he needed to see Anna. He needed to see David. "I'm sure," Lucas sighed. "I'll send you now. Good luck." The call ended. Seconds later, the notification appeared on the screen. The address. A simple set of numbers and words, but it meant the biggest decision of his life. He stared at the message for a long time. Daniel parked the car in the street, far enough away not to be noticed. The house was modest, with a small garden at the front. Lights on in the living room indicated that someone was inside. He took a deep breath. His hands were sweating. His heart was beating fast. What would he say? How would she react? He thought about going back. Just move on and pretend you never found out anything, but he couldn't. Then he saw the door open. Anna appeared, holding a garbage bag, distracted. Her hair was a little shorter, but her eyes were the same. The past hit him like a punch. Before he could react, a voice came from inside the house. "Mom!" The air was gone from Daniel's lungs. David appeared in the doorway, holding a toy car. Anna froze when she saw Daniel standing there. Her gaze became a wall. David's eyes shone with curiosity. "Who is he?" Anna didn't answer straight away. Neither did Daniel. For a moment, no one moved. The silence was absolute. And then Anna spoke. "Come in, David." The boy hesitated. "But Mom, now." The firmness in her voice left no room for argument. David frowned, but obeyed, entering the house. Anna closed the door behind him. Then she crossed her arms and looked directly at Daniel. "What are you doing here?" Daniel opened his mouth to answer, but nothing came out. Anna stared at him with a mixture of surprise and anger, her arms crossed, as if she was holding back from saying something worse. He tried again, but didn't know where to start. "You saw him, didn't you?" Her voice was low but sharp as a blade. Daniel nodded slowly. "Yes." Anna took a deep breath, clearly trying to keep her composure. "What do you want, Daniel? After 10 years, what makes you show up now?" He ran his tongue over his dry lips, choosing his words carefully. "I didn't know." Anna laughed humorlessly. "Oh, you didn't?" "Of course you didn't. You were too busy with your perfect life." Daniel closed his eyes for a moment. "It's not like that." "Then explain it to me," she replied, taking a step forward. "Explain how a man abandons someone, disappears without looking back, and then turns up as if nothing had happened. I had no idea that you—" He swallowed. "That you were pregnant." Anna was silent for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice was full of hurt. "And if I had known, what would you have done, Daniel? Would you have stayed?" Daniel blinked. The answer should have been obvious, but it wasn't. Exactly. She let out a sigh, shaking her head. You wouldn't have stayed. Daniel felt the blow like a punch in the chest. I can fix that. Anna laughed again in disbelief. Fix it? Daniel, this isn't a deal you can renegotiate. This is my son's life. That word hit him hard. My son. Our son, he corrected, his voice firmer. Anna narrowed her eyes. You have no right to call him that. Daniel opened his mouth to retort, but shut it. What could he argue? She was right. The silence between them stretched on for a few seconds. Then Anna took a deep breath and uncrossed her arms. What exactly do you want, Daniel? He hesitated. I want to get to know you. Anna laughed, but there was something vulnerable in that laugh. Do you think you can just show up and be his father? I don't want to take anyone's place, Daniel said quickly. I know I don't have any rights, but I want to be part of his life. Anna stared at him, evaluating his words. It's not just up to me, Daniel frowned. What do you mean? She sighed. Do you think he grew up without a father figure? Daniel felt his stomach turn. Does he have anyone? Anna nodded. Yes, he does. Daniel's chest tightened. Who? She crossed her arms again. Does it matter? Daniel looked at the floor, trying to control the wave of emotions that hit him. I want to meet you, Anna. That's all. She remained silent for a long time. Then she finally said, I need to think. Daniel nodded. All right. Anna gave him one last look before turning and going into the house. Daniel stood there, feeling the weight of the conversation. He had taken the first step, but there was still a long way to go. Daniel stared at the closed door for a long time before finally turning away. His chest heaved, the conversation with Anna running over and over in his mind. He wanted to believe that he had taken a step in the right direction, but the uncertainty ate away at him. On the way home, he called Lucas. Any news? His friend answered immediately. I spoke to Anna. There was a brief silence before Lucas asked, And how did it go? Daniel sighed. Better than I expected. Worse than I wanted. Lucas laughed. Does that mean she didn't throw a vase at your head? No, but almost. Now what? Daniel gripped the steering wheel. She says she needs to think. Lucas whistled. That's something. She could have just told you to get lost. I know, but... He hesitated. But what? Daniel looked at the road. He's got someone. Lucas was silent for a few seconds. You mean... Yes, he has a father figure. And that bothers you? Daniel laughed humorlessly. Do I have the right to be bothered? I think you have the right to feel anything, but the right question is, does it change what you want to do? Daniel didn't answer straight away. Finally he said, No. Lucas let out a sigh. Then wait. Give her space. If Anna really believes you've changed, she'll give you a chance. 3 days later, Anna called. Daniel picked up on the first ring. Hi, Daniel. I thought about what you said, she began bluntly. Daniel remained silent, waiting. I don't know if I trust you, she continued, and frankly, I don't know if I want to risk letting you into his life. He clutched his cell phone tighter. But, Anna sighed, but David deserves to know the truth. Daniel closed his eyes, feeling a relief he didn't know he needed. So, you can meet him, but under my conditions. He nodded, even though he knew she couldn't see. What are they? First, no telling him who you are. Daniel frowned. What do you mean? You'll be introduced as an old friend. I don't want him to find out everything at once. Daniel hesitated but agreed. That's fine. Secondly, our meeting will be in a public place. Okay. Anna took a deep breath. We'll meet in the park tomorrow. Daniel felt his heart race. Thank you, Anna. She didn't answer right away. Don't thank me yet. That doesn't mean I trust you. The call dropped. Daniel looked at his cell phone, trying to process what had just happened. He had a chance. Now he had to prove that he deserved it. Daniel arrived at the park early, He walked around the site, trying to control the anxiety that was growing by the minute. The sun shone softly through the trees, and the sound of children's laughter filled the air. He looked around, wondering what it would be like to see David up close to talk to him, and then, finally, he saw them. Anna was walking alongside the boy, who was holding a ball under his arm. David seemed excited, gesticulating as he spoke, with no idea what was about to happen. Daniel felt a tightness in his chest. When Anna saw him, she stopped for a second, before taking a deep breath and continuing walking. "David," she called out, putting a hand on the boy's shoulder. "I want you to meet a friend of mine." The boy looked at Daniel curiously. "Hi," said David. His voice was firm but childlike, full of innocent confidence. Daniel bent down a little, smiling. "Hi, champ." David frowned. "Do you play ball?" Daniel laughed, surprised by the direct question. "I played a lot when I was a kid." "Do you think you still know?" Daniel raised an eyebrow. "There's only one way to find out." David threw the ball down and gave it a gentle kick. Daniel returned the pass. Anna crossed her arms, watching everything carefully. The game started slowly, just simple passes, but soon David loosened up. "You're good," said the boy. "So are you." David smiled, clearly pleased with the compliment. "My mother doesn't know how to play." Daniel glanced at Anna, who rolled her eyes. "Soccer was never my talent." David laughed. "You should try it, Mom." "Not a chance." Daniel allowed himself a smile. For the first time, the moment seemed light. Then David suddenly stopped and looked at Daniel with a frown. "Have you seen me before?" Daniel's heart raced. "Why?" David shrugged. "You look kind of familiar." Anna tensed. Daniel took a deep breath. "Maybe I just have one of those common faces." David watched him for a moment before shrugging. "I guess so." Then he kicked the ball back to him, resuming the game. Anna let out the air she hadn't even realized she was holding. Daniel felt his chest tighten. He'd had his chance. Now he had to prepare for the next one. The next few days passed slowly. Daniel didn't try to rush anything. He knew that any false step could destroy the fragile opportunity Anna had given him. But to his surprise, David started asking about him. "Mom, is your friend coming back?" David asked one evening while they were having dinner. Anna looked at him for a moment before answering. "Maybe. Did you like him?" David nodded as he chewed. "Yes, he plays well." Anna smiled, but her gaze was distant. "We'll see." Daniel returned to the park a few days later. This time it was David who ran up to him. "Hi, did you bring a ball?" Daniel laughed. "I forgot." "But I think you did, didn't you?" David smiled and showed Daniel the ball he was holding. The game started quickly. Every laugh, every exchange of words seemed natural. But for Daniel, every moment was a reminder of the time he had lost. Anna watched from a distance with her arms crossed. When the game was over, David sat down on the grass, panting. "You tire quickly," he joked. Daniel laughed. "I think I'm getting old." David looked at him for a moment. "Do you have children?" The question caught Daniel off guard. He glanced at Anna, who also tensed up. "No, I don't." David frowned. "Would you like to?" Daniel felt a lump in his throat. "I think so." David just nodded. "You're nice." Daniel smiled even though his chest felt tight. "Thanks, champ." Anna sighed and came closer. "Come on, David, it's getting late." David stood up and picked up the ball. "Bye, Daniel." "See you later, champ." Anna hesitated for a moment before looking at Daniel. "Yeah, he likes you." "I like him too," she sighed. "I still don't know where this is going." "I know." Anna nodded slowly. "But I'm willing to find out." Daniel's heart raced. "Thank you, Anna." She didn't say anything else, just took David's hand and walked away. Daniel stood there, watching them disappear down the road. He didn't know what the future held, but for the first time he felt that he was exactly where he was supposed to be.